Now, we've got a couple of housekeeping items to go over before we get into today's show. One, I think I figured out why our videos were getting flagged. Almost every single live show we were doing was getting flagged. Now, it would get approved after a certain amount of time, but I think I figured out what it was. I think it had to do with the chat. So there's a filter on the chat. And so some comments or chat comments are going to be withheld. What I'm going to ask you guys to do is, if that happens to you, don't get upset. Don't get your feelings hurt. Just reword your comment so that it goes through the filters. That's how we're going to have to do it. And that's what's going to protect the channel. I've instructed Tom not to approve any of the chat comments that do get stuck in the filter. So please don't ask him to approve your comments. Just reword your comment and say the same thing that you wanted to say, just in a different way. We all know how to do that, right? We're smart people. So that's what's going on with that. Tomorrow is Saturday, and over the weekend, I'll be doing more of the headlines shows, between the headlines. I think that's a good time to do that. Not to say we won't ever have headline shows during the week, but on the weekends, I can pre-record those and get them up onto the channel, and then we can all hang out in the chat on the weekends. I usually do those in the mornings. Seems like a lot of you are up, about 9 a.m., 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, a little earlier on the West Coast. But I think that'll be a good plan to keep up with the headlines. There's a lot to cover. I've already got tabs pulled up for tomorrow's show. And so we'll get that organized and presented to you guys. Let's get into season 4 of The 100. And after we go over this is a montage you guys have not seen yet. I'll upload that over the weekend as well, but we're going to look at that montage today. And it's apparent to me that this serpent has been crowned, or at least he thinks he is. And so basically that's what I believe is going on as we begin to break down this trailer. Now, the themes in this season 4 are all about free choice versus control, as well as the all-seeing eye, the hive mind. Now, understand as we break this down that everything that God does, the enemy tries to copy him, right? Which is exactly why he wants to elevate himself above the Most High. He creates a counterfeit version of himself to try to confuse you. And this actually works on a lot of people. They think to themselves and rationalize, well, what difference is there between God and the devil? Well, aren't they both just fighting for power? And they go on and try to rationalize this. Or why is the devil so bad? All he wanted to do was give mankind the secrets of heaven. But these are all lies. This is the lie of the devil, because the devil doesn't really give a crap about you. In fact, he will kill, steal, and destroy anything good. God is good, and until you finally realize that, you will be stuck in the devil's lie, in which he has you believing that the devil has a case against God. You have to also take into account that God is the creator, and so he is the Most High. So there is no legitimate claim to the throne. Everything is smoke and mirrors. And this is what you always have to remember. Now, these themes play out throughout these series. You see people challenging leadership, and all of these are just reflections of the devil's argument against God. The devil is the accuser, the father of the lie, okay? Now, why do I have so much faith in God? Well, I entrust that he is good, and he is good all the time. This reality and all the pain and suffering that we go through here has nothing to do with anything that God did. All of the blame is attributed to the devil. He's the one who caused all this and is the cause of all evil on this planet. And until we get out of this matrix, until we get out of this dimension of evil and lies and mirrors and reflections of things, we will never have peace. God promises us peace in the new reality, which will be the new heavens and the new earth. But if we don't have faith and we think the devil can do it better, he'll give you that, and that's called hell. That's called being stuck in a place where it's every man for himself, and all the other scriptures in the Bible that talk about the place of hell. Now, I don't know if people are going to be alive in hell. I think God says he's going to destroy everything and everybody. But there are scriptures that talk about eternal damnation and punishment. So you have to ask yourself, how's that going to look? So let's get into these themes and how they play out in the series, The 100.
Human beings are the only species that act against our own self-interest.
We took away our choice. Human beings have free will. We get to decide how we should live.
Whatever one sees, they all see. Whatever one hears, they all hear.
So that's, of course, the character Clark, and they're having a debate there about free will and the human race. And again, these are all the devil's arguments, and he just reflects these arguments in entertainment media to get you to start to doubt God and God's order and the way God handles things. Understand that the most significant act of, basically, let's find the right wording here, not forgiveness, but the most perfect act of fairness and justice was the act that God allowed the devil to stay alive and make his case in the timeline. That was the most fair act, I think, probably in the entire universe. Why? Because God knew that that would result in the suffering of mankind. But he also had to be fair to the devil. The devil made a case against God. So God said, okay, let it play out then. You're in control of this world, but my people are faithful, and they know that this flesh reality is just a heartbeat of time, just a fragment of time against the backdrop of eternity. They will not forsake me. They will realize that even if their flesh is gone, they will live in the spirit with me forever. And this is why God said, what about my servant Job? Because he knew Job understood that this little bit of suffering that we go through in this life is nothing compared to eternity of bliss, happiness, hope, and love. But you have to have faith and believe. So God allowed the devil to let all that play out, and all that's going to do in the end is prove God's case, that you don't want a free-for-all, that you don't want to live in the tree of good and evil, where you can do what you want, and you're allowed to do evil. Right? But here, you're hearing the devil's case here. He's like, well, hey, we're human. We make mistakes. I'd rather be human and make mistakes than not be able to have a choice. Do you see what's happening here? It's all mind control to try to get you on the devil's side. We'll take our chances. We don't want to be mind controlled. You see? Now, what else do I have here? So, will there be free choice to do evil in God's new kingdom? No, there won't. And that is what the devil is trying to get inside of your head about. Do you really want to be like that? Do you really not want to have a chance to do bad things? You see, this is why the devil glorifies bad things. This is why he glorifies harming your own body with substances and toxins. This is why he glorifies it, because he wants you to think twice. He wants you to go, wow, isn't it nice to feel high? Well, you're going to be high in God's new kingdom, but it's going to be a natural high. You're not going to need substances. And all those addictions and things you think you need to be happy in this reality, you won't need anymore. So the enemy corrupts the universal law, and he depicts it as something sinister. Now, in the 100, the artificial intelligence takes away people's choice. And so, obviously, the AI is evil, right? But what they're trying to do is compare the AI to God and say, oh, look, this is what it's going to be like. You're not going to have a choice. If you go to heaven, no choices. Basically, you won't be able to do bad things. And how much fun is that going to be? Because some of the things that we do that are bad are fun. That's what the devil wants you to think. So in the series, when the AI takes away people's choice, there are sinister motives behind it. including allowing evil to still exist, including culling or thinning out of the human race, including allowing sin to continue. In other words, one person harming another, which by its very definition still allows evil to proliferate.
I get it.
You've taken the chip.
Join me. Join us.
Now, let's get up to speed on the plot here, because some of you might be a little bit lost, because it's been a while since we did one of these decodes on the series. So, there are 12 tribes, and there's actually a 13th tribe, which is the Sky Crew, people from the space station orbiting the Earth. And they all realize that there is another, what's called a fire event. Prime fire, they call it. And it's basically where the world is destroyed by fire as the world's nuclear power plants begin to melt down. So this is the second mass die-off, basically, is what they're staring at. And they have to find a way to survive. So they try to find the location of this defunct bunker. And it was built by doomsdayers that prepared basically just before the first nuclear war. And the group is a religious fanatic group called the Second Dawn, as you can see here. Founded by Bill Cadigan. And the report you're seeing here is the Four Horsemen. Of course, the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. First one, I believe, being the White Horse, which is what's happening right now. A crown and a bow. And basically, this guy preaches about the Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Let's back this up and listen.
Join me. Join us. And together when the horsemen come, from the ashes we will rise.
Put him on the cross.
Now, we talked in the last decode about how the AI learns to use people's loved ones to make them willingly take the chip. In this instance, this is Cain. He loves this woman, but she has been taken over by the AI. She took the chip. So she says, put him on the cross. So the AI uses every vice known to man because it learns from one of the first people that it put the chip in, and it took the chip, and that was the Chancellor, Jaha. And Jaha instructs the AI, look, you have to use vices to get these people to make the free choice. Love, lust, pain, greed. And then the AI, once people take the chip, it starts speaking through people's loved ones. Does all this sound familiar? It should, because it's happening right now. Loved ones, employers. It's almost as if the AI is speaking through them to try to coerce everyone to take the chip. Now, the AI uses physical pain in the form of crucifixions to coerce people into taking the chip. Now, we had talked all about this in an earlier decode, about how there's the second AI 2.0 in the series, was inserted in the back of the neck, just over the brainstem of the commander of the Grounders. And we showed you how there's an image of the crucified Christ in the anatomy of the flesh in this area of the brain. You can see it on the left border of your screen. And that's where the chip is inserted for AI 2.0. Well, it was in that episode that the AI began crucifying people. And that confirmed for me the connection between the image of the crucified Christ in the back of the brain and the AI and what they seek to do, which is take over your consciousness, stand in the holy place.
This is unity.
Abby! This is madness!
Now you're going to recognize this guy because who did he play? He played Jesus, didn't he? In a TV series. Now in this series, in the 100, he plays the character Cain. We all know who Cain was. Cain was the first murderer, right? So, when a person takes the chip, they go into this place called the City of Light. And it's like this perfect utopia city. It's like but it's in an alternate dream state. It's like in their subconscious mind, but it feels very real. And everything is bliss. Now, this next scene you're going to see, I couldn't believe my eyes. Because as they're talking, you see people walking by carrying red balloons. Now, we had talked all about 99 red balloons. Let's watch this part and we'll talk a little bit more about this.
It's almost complete. We'll use Amori again.
So they use various people to manipulate the others into taking the chip, which feels like it's happening right now. Now, the Holy Spirit warned about these red balloons in 2017 for those of you that follow this channel. It started, and I'm going to recount it very quickly here. It started with these balloons being released during the 2017 eclipse. They were released by NASA. Then we identified Nina's 99 Red Balloon Revival Tour, which seemed to be ushering in or kicking something off. Then we rediscovered the 1970s Red Balloons Operation Sea Spray, in which the U.S. military sprayed red balloon-shaped bacteria called Serratia marginsons over the people of San Francisco, and it was a bioweapon experiment. And they had already known since the 1930s that this particular pathogen was a pathogen and that it was lethal. Several people died. Many of you will remember I reached out to I think it was the grandson or the son of one of the people that died, asking him to interview him, and he declined. But at first he had went to go sue the government, and he must have settled. He probably has some kind of non-disclosure agreement, and he can't even talk about it. But he did email me back. For those of you that, well, I don't think we're allowed to give out personal information, but suffice to say, I can redact his email address and show you the email that he sent me in reply, that he didn't want to get involved. Then, right about that time, we read about Operation Cherry Blossom, where the Japanese sent toxic balloons over the jet stream across the Pacific Ocean, and that it actually killed American citizens. Cherry blossoms look like red balloons as well. There was all this pre-programming going on. All of this was in 2017, you guys. Then we found a Metallica video that we decoded called All Nightmare Long. All of this was before the spam-demic. All Nightmare Long, in the music video, shows these balloons coming over the jet stream, much like Operation Cherry Blossom, but there was other elements in that music video that seemed to foreshadow what we are about to go through right now. About that time, we were warning people to get out of the big cities, that a plague was coming. And then during one of the eclipses, the makers of the TV series called The Strain, they tweeted out during the eclipse that the master is here. That's what the tweet said. So we knew an eclipse would bring this plague. And of course, The Strain was all about a plague that turns people into vampires. And then it happened. On Eclipse Day 2019, December 26th, the first CV-19 case was identified in China. Now, when I was decoding all this, I was in the moment, in the spirit. I was presenting to you guys the information, but I wasn't trying to predict anything. And many of you know that, because people kept asking me, what good is this if you're not predicting anything? And I said, hindsight is 2020. Well, we've come full circle, and now in hindsight, we can look back and see that we had predicted what was happening right now. It has all come to pass. And most people now will wish they were out of these big cities, because we're hearing stories daily I think Brian just uploaded a video. These parents got some kind of letter in Michigan basically threatening that their child would be taken away if they didn't conform and quarantine their child because they got contact traced. Do you want to be living in that city right now? I wouldn't. I'd want to be as far away as possible on some land in a town of 3,000 people. That's where I'd want to be right now. Now, most of those videos that I just recounted are still up on the channel, but many of those of you who were subscribed at the time when we went through all this can attest to everything I just said to silence the naysayers. Now, let's keep going with this. Because the AI gets cornered and has no choice but to upload the remnants of its programming to the Ark space station. We're going to watch that part next. It migrates its software up to this space station, just like Satan wants to elevate himself above the Most High. He wants to crown himself king. And that's what I believe is being symbolized by the AI uploading into the Crown Ring space station in the sky.
You know, you can correct your defects here.
I would, if I had any.
It's all right, Thelonious. The migration was a success. The transmission from the escape pod is complete. They can't get to us here.
Now, there's actually an episode titled Heavy Lies the Crown. And you're going to hear him say this in a second here. And what that phrase is, what that quote is a corruption of a line from a Shakespearean play. But here's what I think heavy lies the crown really means. It's got a double meaning. What it's really saying is the crown lies heavily. The lie in this case is Allie, the woman you just saw in the red dress. She's the AI. And her name really means a lie.
Heavy lies the crown. Heavy lies the crown. I know the burden of keeping a secret.
Keeping the secret, or basically telling a lie, right? So, now as the reactors begin to melt down, a wave of fire called prime fire begins to sweep across the planet. And lots of killing happens here and betrayal in this part of the series, as the remaining humans justify evil actions and hurting one another as they fight like cockroaches for survival. Now, understand that this is the epitome of the scripture that says, "He that tries to preserve his life will lose it, and he that loses it will preserve it." You guys, Christ will come as a purifying fire. And the question becomes, will faithful people try to run underground to avoid this purifying fire? Or will we understand that we will be born again in the Spirit? Basically, in trying to preserve our lives, we will lose them. So this part blew me away because as this prime fire sweeps across Egypt, we see the pyramids destroyed, which reminded me of the scene from Heliofant, I Pet Goat 2. We should actually call it Apollophant, shouldn't we? Same God, Helios and Apollo. But here's the thing. When this prime fire destroys the pyramids, it's being destroyed by a solar corona. can't make this up, you guys. It's getting very specific, isn't it?
Once we create this Nightblood serum, we're going to have to distribute it very quickly.
Once we create this Nightblood serum, we're going to have to distribute it very quickly. What's this about? Well, they come up with this plan to preserve the human race and save them from the prime fire. How? Well, they realize that these people called Nightbloods are basically protected against radiation. Why? Because how did they get the Nightblood or the black blood? Well, it was gene therapy. That's how they got it. And they explained that in a previous episode. Is all this sounding familiar? So their plan is to infect the entire world with Nightblood. But how are they going to enact this? Well, first they have to stop fighting to execute the plan. They have to stop all the wars. Is all this starting to sound familiar? Gafmanistan, the worldwide sticker campaign. Now understand that all of this, season 4 and 5, released in like 2016, 2017. Before any of this happened.
And we need peace for that.
Once we create this Nightblood serum, we're going to have to distribute it very quickly.
And we need peace for that.
Turn everyone into Nightbloods, so we can all survive.
Blasphemy.
We discovered that Nightblood helps metabolize radiation. We're investigating ways to create it for everyone.
It's not blasphemy. It's science.
Of course, the altar of science, right? They want us to bow at the altar of science. Next, you're going to hear them talk about Dina and Raina. Dina and Raina. Dina.
If Nightblood can save lives, we should use it.
What happened when you tried to get the Nightblood protein to bond with Luna's DNA?
The structure of the RNA fell apart.
Show me prototype Nightblood RNA binding in a 0G environment.
So they basically realize that they can only synthesize this Nightblood inside of a 0G environment. But look here. When she tries to synthesize it. What's this? What is this? This was 2016.
At least we'll survive the death.
Let's play that back again. Zoom it in.
At least we'll survive the death wave. We can't all be essential personnel.
So,
Human beings.
This was 2016. Now, as they realize the wave is coming, they can't fit everybody into the bunkers, and their plan to infect everyone with the Nightblood does not work. So you just heard him say that essential personnel are given a pass to the front of the line. We all know what that's about. Essential personnel. So, I'm on season 5 now. There's 7 seasons. First 3 or 4 parts of the series are up on Odysee. First 2 or 3 parts, actually. The rest are here. We had to take some down because the channel almost got struck out a couple weekends ago. So we're good for now. There's no strikes on the channel. Unbelievable foreshadowing. So let's go back here in the chat and hang out with you guys for a bit. I truly believe the end times are upon us. 100%. Now, I do know a couple people that after they believed that the sticker got FIDA approval, they ended up getting the sticker. And that just really broke my heart. Because, I don't know, we're in a time now where things are getting really weird, okay? We are now the minority. And as that minority shrinks and shrinks and shrinks, we will be discriminated against. It's already happening right now. A lot of it's just fear. Fear campaigns are trying to scare everyone. But we're at the point now where things are starting to get really weird. So that's what's going on, you guys. And right now we just need prayers. No one should ever willingly take the mark. All right. Some of you are, so Marion saying they're having VX passports in September in Canada. Now, some of the headlines we're going to be covering tomorrow, we're actually going to be talking about how the noose has tightened even more. They're squeezing even harder. And so things are, as we get into this season, things are going to continue to get more complicated. And there will be increased pressure. And all I could say is stand your ground. Stand your ground. I agree with 7 Grains. Great comment. All right, you guys. I'm going to go ahead and get off here. We'll see you guys tomorrow. And I'll be in the chat tomorrow with you guys. And I'll do like a headlines video. I'll probably record it right after I get off of this show. Get it uploaded and ready for tomorrow morning. Take care and be safe, everybody.